This story explores mature emotional themes such as grief, trauma, and healing. It contains no explicit content but may be intense for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I used to think strength meant surviving alone. That burying pain deep enough made it disappear. I smiled for everyone, at work, with friends, at family dinners. But the truth was, I'd been drowning in silence for years, ever since my father died and left a void I never really talked about. Relationships? Fleeting. Love? Complicated. I kept my heart locked behind sarcasm, busy schedules, and coffee-fueled distractions. Then he walked into my life. I didn't notice him at first, not in the way stories usually describe. He wasn't some loud, cinematic entrance. No fireworks, no love at first sight. He was quiet, calm, unassuming. His name was Eli, an editor hired on a short-term contract at the publishing house where I worked. Tall, disheveled in that bookish, effortlessly cool way, with a soft voice that made you lean in to listen. He had this strange habit of pausing before he spoke, like every word mattered. And somehow, I couldn't stop listening. What began with awkward coffee runs and glances across shared manuscript notes turned into late-night talks about grief, anxiety, and things we never said out loud to anyone else. He saw through my perfectly curated life and gently, without force, started to undo the walls I had built. But I didn't know then that Eli was running too. From his own past. His own secrets. And just when I started to believe I could finally let someone in, his world collided with mine in a way that made me question everything I thought I knew about him, and myself. Prompt to create an accurate picture for this scene, a cozy urban publishing office with warm lighting, featuring a woman in her late 20s with dark curly hair, wearing a smart casual outfit, sitting at her desk with a coffee cup in hand. A tall man in his early 30s with slightly messy dark hair, light stubble, glasses, and a soft, attentive expression stands nearby holding a manuscript. Their eyes meet across the room, surrounded by stacks of books and a window showing the city at dusk. The mood is emotionally tense but warm, hinting at connection and unspoken understanding. Let me know if you'd like the image generated now. There was something about Eli that made time slow down. Maybe it was the way he listened, really listened. Not like most people, who are just waiting for their turn to talk. He had this rare presence, like he carried stories too heavy for his own shoulders. And maybe that's why I trusted him, because he felt just as haunted as I was. We started spending more time together under the guise of work. Sharing playlists, editing chapters, debating story arcs over late dinners that stretched well past midnight. I found myself watching him when he wasn't looking, how his brow creased when he read something powerful, how his fingers drummed softly on the desk when he was deep in thought. He made the quiet moments feel loud in a way I'd never experienced. But he never talked about his past. Not in detail. I learned he'd moved to the city only months before taking the job. That he'd walked away from something, or someone. And the closer we got, the clearer it became that Eli had scars he wasn't ready to show me. I didn't push. God knows I hated when people did that to me. Still, there was a part of me, one I'd spent years trying to silence, that ached to know more. One rainy evening, we found ourselves walking home together under a shared umbrella. I'd forgotten how intimate silence could be until that moment. The air was thick with something unspoken. I wanted to tell him that I felt safe with him. That for the first time in years, someone saw me without needing me to be strong all the time. But before I could find the words, he stopped walking. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice barely audible over the rain. But I don't know if you'll still want to know me after. His eyes didn't meet mine, and for a split second, I felt the floor shift beneath us. He looked scared. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't say a word. I just nodded, silently giving him space to speak. But then, his phone buzzed. He glanced down at the screen, and his entire expression changed. Panic. Regret. Something raw. I'm sorry, he whispered, already stepping away. I didn't mean for you to get pulled into this. And just like that, he was gone, disappearing into the rain, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with a million questions and a heart that had just started to hope again. The rain hadn't stopped since that night. It was as if the city knew something had shifted, something between Eli and me. Days passed without a single message. No calls. No notes left on my desk. He was just gone. HR said he'd taken emergency leave. No details. No return date. I told myself I was fine. That maybe it had all been in my head, the long talks, the late nights, the feeling that we had cracked each other open. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. People don't just run unless they're running from something. Or someone. I threw myself into work to fill the silence. But it didn't help. Every chapter one edited felt hollow. Every plot twist a poor reflection of what was happening in my own life. Then, last Tuesday, I got a package. No name on the return label. Just my address scribbled in familiar handwriting. Inside was a flash drive and a note. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. I never meant to lie to you. I stared at it for hours before I plugged it in. The file was audio. Eli's voice, shaky and raw. He talked about a woman named Claire. His sister. She'd vanished 2 years ago. And the last person to see her alive was the man Eli used to work for, a corrupt political consultant with a habit of silencing people who asked the wrong questions. Eli had spent the last year investigating him in secret, trying to prove what really happened. And now, somehow, I was connected. I should have told you sooner, he said. But the closer we got, the more I wanted to protect you from all of it. I didn't think they'd find out I was still digging. I was wrong. I froze. Was I in danger? Did someone know we were involved? Had I already been watched? Suddenly, a loud knock broke the silence of my apartment. 3 sharp raps. I looked through the peephole, no one was there. But taped to the outside of the door was a small envelope. Inside was a photo. It was Eli. Standing outside my building. Taken that same night. My heart dropped. This wasn't just about secrets anymore. Someone was trying to send a message. And if Eli was right, I was now a piece in a much bigger, more dangerous puzzle. But I wasn't going to be scared off. Not anymore. If he trusted me enough to tell the truth, then I owed him something too. And I was done pretending to be the kind of woman who ran from messy love or hard truths. I was going to find him. And this time I wouldn't let him disappear. The city felt different after that night, colder, sharper, like even the shadows were watching. I slept with the lights on. Double-locked my door. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. Eli's voice haunted me through those recordings. He'd left 5 in total, each one revealing a little more about the web he'd gotten caught in. Each one drawing me deeper into it. Claire's disappearance. The man behind it. The fake identities, the threats, the trail of people who had once tried to speak out and vanished without a trace. And then, in the final message, his voice cracked. If something happens to me, don't let them win. Please. Don't stop. I wanted to scream. I wanted to find him, shake him, ask him why he thought disappearing would protect me. Didn't he know I was already in this? That I'd choose him, even if it meant stepping into danger I didn't fully understand? I took the photo to a friend of mine, Lucas, who worked in private security. He owed me a favor. When he saw the picture, his face went pale. This guy behind Eli, he said, pointing just over Eli's shoulder. He's not just muscle. That's Nico Antonoff. He used to run cleanup for political campaigns overseas, before things went sideways. He's not the type you just walk away from. That's when it hit me, Eli hadn't just vanished. He was being hunted. Lucas traced Eli's last known location to a storage facility just outside the city, registered under a shell company Eli had mentioned in one of the recordings. My hands were shaking as I drove there. Part of me screamed to call the police. But another part, stronger, more reckless, knew they couldn't be trusted with this. Not yet. The facility was empty. Dead silent. Rows of units stretched out like forgotten secrets. And then, Unit 308. The lock had been broken. I hesitated, my breath caught in my chest, then stepped inside. It was dark. Dusty. A single bulb flickered overhead. Inside was a fold-out table, papers scattered across it, maps, names, photos, redacted files. Evidence. Eli's investigation. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Close. I turned, heart pounding so hard I thought I might black out. A tall figure stepped into the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light. Looking for someone? A man's voice said, calm, almost amused. It wasn't Eli. But whoever he was, he knew who I was. And he wasn't surprised to find me there. The man in the doorway stepped forward, slow and deliberate. His voice was calm, but there was something chilling underneath, like he already knew the ending of a story I hadn't even finished reading. You shouldn't be here, he said, glancing around the storage unit like he was cataloging everything Eli had uncovered. You've seen too much. I stood my ground, though every instinct in me screamed to run. Where is Eli? He smirked, but there was no humor in it. Eli, he echoed, stepping closer. You still think he's the hero in all this? That stopped me. What are you talking about? He reached into his coat pocket slowly and tossed a small, leather-bound notebook onto the table. My heart sank. I recognized it immediately. It was the one Eli always carried, the one he'd never let out of his sight. I picked it up with trembling fingers, flipping through the pages. Maps, timelines, surveillance photos, and then, a name circled in red ink over and over, Claire Simmons. Eli's sister. Only, that wasn't her real name. According to the documents clipped inside, Claire Simmons was a cover identity. Her real name was Elena Novak. And she wasn't just some missing person. She'd been embedded in the consultants' network. She was part of it. She wasn't taken, the man said, watching me. She vanished because she chose to. Eli wasn't tracking a disappearance, he was trying to cover one up. I stared at the pages in disbelief. That's not possible. He wouldn't lie to me like that. He lied to everyone. You were just the latest variable he couldn't control. My mind reeled. Could it be true? Was Eli not just a victim, but someone trying to bury his own past? Then I noticed something else in the notebook. A photograph of me. It was dated before we ever met. My blood ran cold. You were never supposed to be part of this, the man said, softer now. But he made a mistake. He got too close. I backed away, heart thudding in my ears. The room spun. Everything I believed, every connection, every vulnerable moment, was now tangled in a web of questions. Had Eli been watching me long before we met? Was I just a pawn in his unraveling plan? Or worse, had I fallen in love with someone who never existed at all? I ran. Out of the storage unit. Into the night. I didn't stop until my lungs burned and the cold air blurred my vision with tears. None of it made sense, Eli's secrets, Claire's real identity, the photo of me taken before we ever spoke. Everything I felt, everything we were, suddenly seemed like a lie. But deep down, I knew that couldn't be the whole truth. Because whatever Eli had done, whatever he'd hidden, there was no faking the way he looked at me. No one fakes a heartbeat like that. Lucas met me at a diner an hour later. He'd pulled some strings, tracked Eli's last phone signal to a motel on the edge of town. No lights. No front desk records. Just a single room paid for in cash. I didn't think. I just went. Room 12. I knocked once. Then again. My heart pounded like a warning. And then, he opened the door. Eli. He looked exhausted. Unshaven. Haunted. But when he saw me, the air between us froze. No words. Just this unbearable silence full of everything we hadn't said. I never meant for you to get pulled in, he said quietly, stepping aside. But I couldn't walk away from you either. I held up the notebook. You knew who I was before we met. Why? He exhaled slowly. Because Claire, Elena, was watching you. You were listed in one of her files. I didn't know why. I thought maybe you were a target, or a witness. But when I met you, I realized you weren't part of their story. You were mine. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to throw the notebook and leave. But then he handed me something, an old flash drive, identical to the first. This has everything. Proof. Connections. Names. It's enough to take them down. But I can't do it alone. I need someone who still sees the world clearly. And I realized, he wasn't trying to protect himself. He was trying to protect me. From them. From the truth. From a life where love meant risk. I don't know if I can trust you, I whispered, voice breaking. He nodded. I don't blame you. But I still want to. He didn't move. Just looked at me like he was afraid to believe it. So I stepped forward and kissed him, not to erase the lies, but because I knew love, the real kind, lives in the mess, in the brokenness, in the hard truths. Outside, the world was still dangerous. But inside that room, we chose each other. And maybe that's where healing begins, not when the past is erased, but when two people decide to face it, together. We didn't run. That was the first decision we made together. After everything, lies, danger, love twisted up in fear, we could have disappeared. Started over. Changed names. But we didn't. Eli turned over the flash drive to an investigative journalist he trusted. I helped organize the documents. We pieced together the timeline, built the story, and exposed the entire network, Elena's aliases, the money trails, the manipulation tactics. It went public faster than we expected. The story exploded. Suddenly, the names Eli had feared became headlines. Arrests followed. Investigations reopened. Claire, Elena, was never found, but her cover was blown, and the people she'd been working with had nowhere left to hide. I wish I could say everything ended neatly. It didn't. Eli had to testify. He faced serious heat for what he'd hidden, the choices he made in the name of protecting his sister. But he told the truth. Every word. And that changed everything. He wasn't a perfect man. But he was brave. And that mattered more than anything else. As for us, we took our time. It wasn't easy. Trust doesn't snap back like a rubber band. But we rebuilt it slowly, through quiet mornings, long drives with no destination, moments when we didn't need to say much at all. I started writing again. Real stories. Not just fiction. Stories about people who fall in love with the truth, no matter how hard it hits. And Eli? He started volunteering with a nonprofit that helps people escape corrupt systems. He said it was the first time he ever felt like he was making things right. Looking back now, I realize my life wasn't easier after I met him. In fact, it got harder. Messier. But it also got fuller. Richer. Because love, real love, doesn't show up when things are simple. It shows up in chaos. And if you're lucky enough to find someone who stands with you when the storm hits, you don't run. You hold on. You fight. And maybe, just maybe, you come out stronger. So yeah. My life wasn't easier until I met him. But it was finally worth living.